While retail investors are chasing meme coins, institutional money has quietly exited crypto entirely. What they're buying instead is delivering way bigger returns. Institutions have poured over $85 billion into Bitcoin so far, just in 2025. BlackRock alone moved $4 billion in 2 weeks, but it wasn't into Ethereum, it wasn't Solana or XRP, or any altcoin that you've ever heard of. They're buying something completely different. We're talking about real companies with real revenues that are outperforming Bitcoin by 300, 500, and even 1,000%. And most retail investors don't even know this asset class exists. I'm Mark Moss. I've been building and selling tech companies since the dot-com boom. I've been using the power of cycles to drive my investing thesis, and today I'm a partner of a leading Bitcoin venture fund, and I advise companies building the future of finance on Bitcoin. And so, we have a front row seat into these new companies. And in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly what we're seeing. All right, I got a big video planned for you, and really, this might be one of the most important videos that you're gonna watch. If you're investing money, if you want your money to grow, then this video is gonna be for you. But I'm warning you, okay? We're gonna talk about big institutional money making massive returns, how you can do the exact same thing. I'm gonna show you the formula, but I'm warning you, you may not like it. You might not like it, you might not believe it. You might have a closed mind that might prevent you from actually seeing this, but I'm gonna break down the data, okay? So watch this with an open mind. I'm gonna show you the data, and then you can decide if you wanna follow this and make a lot of money or not, okay? Sound good? The first thing we're gonna talk about is the big rotation out of altcoins. I know this is gonna hit a sore subject for a lot of you guys, but I've been talking about since 2022 that there is no alt season coming. Now, alt season is specifically, typically it's referred to the top 150 altcoins moving up in dominance against Bitcoin collectively. Of course, there's, I think there's 16 million listed on CoinMarketCap. Of course, some of them are gonna pump, of course. But we're talking about alt season, and right now what we're seeing is this altcoin graveyard specifically, and we're talking about the big money. Bear with me here, okay? Now, over the last 6 years, we've seen this transition. Like I said, I talked about it a couple years ago. Some people are still like, but Mark, it's gonna happen. I'm like, it's been 2.5 years. But let's take a look at a couple things. Now, the first thing I wanna show you is let's zoom out, and let's zoom out about 5 years, okay? We're gonna use this time frame. During the last 5 years, this is a chart of Bitcoin priced in US dollars. It's up 1,554%. So if you would have bought it here in 2018 and held it this whole time, you would have made 1,554%. And of course, it went up and down and up and down, way up and down, way up and down, up and down, and it's a volatile ride, but it's obviously, as you can see, it's trended up, okay? Let's establish that first. Now, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about, let's look at some of the other things. Now, the king of alts, the one that everybody's watching right now for alt season. If Ethereum moves, then alt season is back. We can see from its previous all-time high right here, it's currently down 49%, about half of what it was at its previous. Of course, Bitcoin is making new all-time highs continually, and here Ethereum is down 50%, 49% priced in US dollars. Understand that, okay? We're gonna come back to that. Priced in US dollars. Now let's take a look at another chart. If we look at Ethereum, not priced in US dollars, but instead priced in Bitcoin, we see something completely different. Okay, this is where you have to have an open mind. If we look at Ethereum priced in Bitcoin, it's a completely different chart. We can see that Ethereum made a new all-time high here priced in Bitcoin back in 2018. And we can see that it's never reclaimed its all-time high. As a matter of fact, it's pretty much just continued a downward trend, and it's down 84% from its all-time high made in 2018. That's why we looked at that period, okay? What this tells us is it's sort of like a pump and then a dump. It never is able to reclaim back its previous all-time high, okay? This is the king of alts. This is what everybody's waiting for this to move so everything else moves. Let's look at another one. You guys are gonna hate me for this one, but let's just take a look, and you can look at the chart, you can look at the data, and you can decide what you think. Okay, here we have XRP. XRP in the same time frame. This is the same 6-year time frame. What we see is that priced in US dollars, XRP made an all-time high. It was about $3.25 or so back in 2018. Then it sold off, okay? And it's pumped, and it's pumped, and it's pumped. It did a big pump, dump, and then now it's up. Currently, it's sitting at about $2, okay? So currently, from its all-time high, It's down 34% off of its high. Remember, Bitcoin continues to make new all-time highs. But priced in US dollars, we're 35 cents off of its high. But if we look at it another way, so we can start to understand this, look at it priced in Bitcoin. Now you see a completely different thing. What does this look like now? 2018, we made the high, it crashed, pumped, dumped, pump, 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 pump. And this right here is just one more pump. From its all-time high, we're currently down 90%. Now before you get mad, this is the data, but I'm gonna show you where the real money is being made, okay? So if you wanna make money, I'm gonna show you that, but first you have to understand what's happening. I'm gonna tell you why this is happening in a second, but do you see what we're talking about here? Okay, now the reason why alts are dead is because of the nature of cycles. About every 50 years, we have a new technological revolution. And each 50-year cycle follows 4 distinct phases. They're very predictable. And they give us a different blueprint for investing. Now, that is why altcoins are dead, because we've gone on. But specifically, we've gone from phase 1 to phase 2. Now, in phase 1, the first part of the cycle, it's about a 10-year period, 10 to 12 years. It is a retail-driven adoption or eruption. So this means the technology was just invented, there's a lot of excitement about it, a lot of people want to get involved, there's a lot of speculation going on, and we made a lot of money back then, right? Anybody been in that long? We've made a lot of money. But this was driven by retail, right? This was before the governments got in, before the Wall Street got in, before the institutions got in, it was retail. And we, the people, the retail, we had, $1,000 to throw in, $5,000, some people were throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars in, and these coins were taking off, very small market caps. But in phase 2, we go from what's called the retail eruption phase to what's called the frenzy phase. Now the frenzy phase is represented by institutional and sovereign demand. So instead of individuals throwing in thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, we now have institutions that are coming in with billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars. And so the market completely changes. Now we can see this pretty simply if we look at some other charts of data. So for example, what is more profitable, crypto or Bitcoin? So in 2025, buying Bitcoin is more likely profitable. However, from 2017 to 2019, investing in crypto was more profitable. It was. The answers change. So it was more profitable than investing in Bitcoin on average, okay? But today, this is no longer the case. According to data gathered by eToro, talk to them, approximately 90% of crypto traders lose money. That's because crypto traders are playing in phase 1 strategy while we're currently in phase 2. I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to show you what the strategy is moving forward. Now we can see this again on another chart here, which kind of illustrates it. So what we have here in the gold line is Bitcoin, and the black line is cryptocurrency. And you can see how Bitcoin has completely distanced itself. And the reason why, again, is because cryptocurrency has thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars going into it. And over here we have hundreds of billions going into it. And so it's just a completely different market. And the reason why is, again, because as we go through these phases, we have to have a different strategy. Now, I'm going to break this down in greater detail, what the 50 years is, what the 4 phases are. It's a big thesis, more than I can cover in this video. If you want to sit down for the whole thesis and do live Q&A so I can explain this to you, I'll put a link down below. It's free if you want to come hang out. I love talking about cycles. So I'm going to break the whole thing down. Check out the link down below, register for free. But let me go ahead and just keep explaining to you what we're talking about. So in this 50-year quantum wave cycle that we're talking about, again, we have these 4 phases. And we can look back to the last 50-year cycle. It started in 1971 with the birth of the microprocessor, which brought us personal computers, telecommunications, and the internet. Now let me show you sort of how this worked through the 4 phases real quickly. This is a chart of what these 4 phases are. You can see we're on our 6th time that it's happened. And each time this happens, there's again these 4 distinct phases: the eruption phase, the frenzy phase, the synergy phase, and the deployment phase. Now we're going to have to change our investing style, our strategy, our thesis each time we move through one of these. But let me give you an example. So let's go back again to 1971. We had the birth of the microprocessor. So when we're looking at Apple, we can see that there was 2 distinct phases: phase 1 and phase 2. In phase 1, Apple's stock went up 1.4,933%. 1.4 million %. And most people, they sat on the sidelines, they watched that, and they said, oh, I missed out. Apple's too expensive now. Why didn't I invest earlier? I always miss out on these. I should have bought sooner. Oh well, I'll go find something else. But that's because they didn't understand that there's not one phase, but there's two phases. In phase 2, Apple went up another 151,000%. They sat on the sideline and watched that entire boom happen. We saw the same thing happen with Microsoft. Microsoft in phase 1 went up 57,000%. Not times, but percent, 57,000%. And everybody thought, oh, now it's too expensive. I missed out. I wish I would have got it sooner. I guess we'll go find something else. And then it went on to do another 1.6 million % return. So if they would have understood that there's these 4 different phases in these cycles, they would have understood that they should have pivoted their strategy and they could have benefited from that. But we have that benefit right now today. Now what we can see is the institutions are changing. So we went from retail to institutional. We can see that there's $85 billion flowing into the market right now. This is the institutional money. So for example, BlackRock has the largest Bitcoin ETF. In just the last 14 days alone, $4 billion has come in just to Bitcoin, $4 billion. We have $85 billion that have come into Bitcoin, just Bitcoin, year to date. We can see this is pension funds that have billions of dollars of allocations. This is sovereign wealth funds. These are nations that are bringing money in. We have giant corporations that are bringing money in. We have all these ETFs like the BlackRock ETFs coming in, and they're all bringing money into Bitcoin. Why is that? Well, they want to deploy billions of dollars. And there's only really one asset that's going to be able to hold billions of dollars. For example, if you look at the entire cryptocurrency market cap, there's about 16 million of them listed on CoinMarketCap today. In the top 10, there's only a few of them that trade more than $1 billion per day. So if you want to deploy $1 billion, how do you do that? You can't deploy $1 billion into Shiba Inu or whatever it is. So we have BlackRock here, $4 billion in just 10 days they're trying to deploy in. We can see right here, $85 billion, doubling the amount of money they're putting in per year. We can see right here, they're pushing the cumulative inflows into Bitcoin to $44.3 billion. And again, the top 10 cryptocurrencies can't even accept that type of money, much less the other, whatever, 15, 16 million that there are. So we understand that the market has changed. We went from retail to now sovereign. Now, the new asset class that's popped up is the MicroStrategy blueprint. All right, this is changing everything. It's the most exciting part of the market right now. So MicroStrategy was a company, it was a software company by Michael Saylor. I've talked about them many times. Of course, you know about them by now. But what they did is they started a Bitcoin strategy, and they went and changed their name from MicroStrategy to Strategy. And now they're teaching that same strategy to all the other companies. Now, they have grown their Bitcoin holdings. Right here it says 576,000. As a matter of fact, now it's over 580,000. It's going up so fast we can't even keep up. 580,000 Bitcoin as of May 26th. And they continue to raise billions of dollars to continue to put into more Bitcoin. And now they're taking that strategy and teaching all the other companies how to do that. Now, what's interesting about MicroStrategy doing this is it's beating Bitcoin itself. So we looked at the altcoins, Ethereum, XRP, the giants, and how they're actually losing money to Bitcoin. MicroStrategy, not priced in US dollars, but priced in Bitcoin, is actually up 278% since it adopted its Bitcoin Treasury strategy. It's up almost 3 times over Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's up, what do we say, 1,500%. So it's up above that. So the key insight is that they're not just buying Bitcoin. What they're doing is they became a Bitcoin company. They learned how to leverage the debt and equity markets to lever up the Bitcoin, which is why they get that additional yield. And there's a lot of companies doing this now. We can see that another company right here, a company called MetaPlanet, has now followed their lead, and they're getting even better results. As a matter of fact, MetaPlanet, when priced in Bitcoin, not US dollars, is beating Bitcoin by 677%. above Bitcoin. That's like what cryptocurrency used to do. That's what Ethereum and XRP used to do, but now it's happening to Bitcoin publicly traded companies. Okay, why publicly traded companies? It's because institutional companies need real institutional plays. What we can see is this is mining companies are doing this, tech companies are doing this, service providing companies are doing this, startups are doing this, and this is really creating what we're calling a Bitcoin Treasury strategy revolution. All right, now, I sort of call these like Bitcoin derivatives because I'm not buying Bitcoin directly, I'm buying a derivative of Bitcoin. I'm buying a public company that's a proxy, that's supported by Bitcoin, okay? But they are real companies registered with the SEC, listed on the NASDAQ, with real revenue and with real returns. All right. So these companies are publicly traded. They're built on the Bitcoin ecosystem. They're building either on and around the Bitcoin ecosystem. They're holding Bitcoin as their treasury asset, meaning they're trying to beat Bitcoin specifically. And these are ones that have strategic focus. Now, the critical distinction is, again, these aren't crypto projects. These are publicly listed NASDAQ plays. All right, now the reason why is because institutions, if you're a sovereign wealth fund or you're a pension fund, you happen to need audited financials, you need public trading, you need real revenues, you need the company to follow like regulatory compliance. And so if you're going to deploy billions of dollars, they must follow these things. They must be real companies, and that's why we're seeing that. With cryptocurrency, what we had was white papers from who knows who. Now we have public company disclosures. We used to have no revenue. Now we have audited financials and real revenue. Again, we have real companies doing real things. All right, now let's talk about the performance of these and where this is all going. So what we're seeing is a complete explosion of performance. These Bitcoin derivative companies, these Bitcoin treasury strategy companies are completely crushing traditional markets. Altcoin markets, traditional markets, and even Bitcoin itself. Let's take a look at this. So if we look at the NASDAQ, this is not since 2018, this is just the NASDAQ year to date. What we can see is that the NASDAQ is basically flat. We had a big dip, Donald Trump's tariffs scared the market, and now we're basically flat. So the NASDAQ hasn't really made any money. TradFi, we can look again, here's the S&P 500, same thing. Here's the beginning of the year. We had the big tariff scare. We're back to about even. We've made no money in NASDAQ. We've made no money in the S&P 500. Let's look at Ethereum. Not since its all-time high. Let's just look at it in the same period year to date. So since January of this year, we're down 32%. When alt season, right? We can look at another one. We can see here, this is a Bitcoin treasury strategy company, okay? Not priced in US dollars, but priced in Bitcoin. We can see this is up 1,337% in the same period. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about crazy returns. Here's another one. You've heard me talk about this one before, Matador. It's a little company out of Canada. We can see this one's up 337% in the same time period against Bitcoin. We're talking about real money. We're talking about real big moves. Public companies, public disclosure companies with real revenues. Okay, so where is this going? Well, we can see the migration is happening, all right? We can understand there's different phases to the cycle. We can see the institutions are here to play. But how big are these institutions? And how much money will they bring? Well, we don't know exactly, but we can sort of take a look. So the first thing we can look at is these public companies, for example. They have to file, and they have to project out what they're expecting to do. So we can look at some of the big ones like MicroStrategy or MetaPlanet or Semler Scientific or Nakamoto or CEP, and we can see what they've announced as far as how much money they've raised and how much money they expect to deploy. And what we can see right here is like, here MicroStrategy raised 10 billion, MetaPlanet raised 5 billion, Semler has 500 million available, Naka has 700 million, CEP has 458 million. All of that is getting ready to be deployed into Bitcoin. On top of that, we have the ETFs, all right? So we can see how much of those are bringing in as well. We can see that the Bitcoin ETFs are on track to attract between 55 to 120 billion dollars in new inflows in 2025 alone. So we're talking about 120 billion here. We're talking about hundreds of millions and 10 billions of dollars here. Again, all coming into Bitcoin. And specifically, it's going into these Bitcoin treasury strategy companies. This is the new market cap. This is the new altcoin. This is the rotation. And if you want to understand how to get wealthy, you have to understand how money rotates from one asset to the next. And this is exactly where it's going. If you want to understand there's a whole new set of metrics, how do we even evaluate these things? How do we measure them? Well, there's terms like BPS and torque and Bitcoin yield and all these new strategies. If you want to learn all about that and how to evaluate and find these companies on your own, check it out. I'll put a link down below. Come hang out with me next week. I'll do a whole live presentation. I'll break the whole thing down for you, and then we'll do a live Q&A. We'll hang out, we'll have fun, we'll answer all your questions live because I do not want you to miss what's going on. So check out the link. Come hang out with me live for free. Otherwise, if you want to know where Bitcoin's price is going by 2030, 40, and 50, you might want to watch this video right here.